I wanted to ask you uh, about what you think is unique to the type of work we do that you don't see in other modalities. And I mean, I know when I think about that, I think about our work with what we call the lower self. So I was wondering, how do you see that?
Well, I think that's probably the single most important aspect of embodied work, the core energetics, the radical aliveness, exceptional marriage work, um, is that um, we we hold a really strong sense of the aspect of humanity that gets overlooked a lot, and that is that we all have a destructive current. We all have a place in us that wants to cause harm, is cruel, is competitive, takes pleasure in somebody else's failure, um, wants to punish, wants to withhold, you know. And I think what this work allows, going back to what you said earlier about self responsibility, um, the basis of self responsibility is to own our own negativity. If we can't own that we sometimes act out these negative parts, then we're not really in full self responsibility, you know. So I have found that people, you know, most people don't even know, they've so disowned their lower self that it takes a while before they can even admit to themselves that they have some of these energies, you know.
Right.
And a lot of our work is helping them to just notice the small ways that they do things both toward themselves and toward others that are destructive.
Right.
And in the reclaiming of that, you know, the paradox is it takes a higher self to really own a lower self, you know. Otherwise, you just act it out. So our work is to help them, you know, allow their higher self to acknowledge and admit and in some way consciously release the lower self so that they can find, you know, what else is there, which is
And I mean, just to be simple, when we say lower self and higher self, we could say it very simply by saying constructive and destructive energy,
right.
right? So, in some ways, I mean, what I see about our work that's amazing is when we really help people energize their destructive energy, there is a felt sense of that energy as something that belongs to us. And I find that profound, and I don't see it done other places. There's a way we go about it that is so deep, and I think it leads people to it leads people to the constructive energy, but
Yes.
really their full constructive energy. And I don't really see how people can well, I'm sure there's other ways because this is a complex world and there's different ways to get places. But I do see this as being a profound strength of the work we do is helping people to really feel that energy fully in their body and know it as theirs so that all of these places that we project outwards, the negativity, the enemy, the
Yeah.
destructive forces outside of us kind of come home to roost inside of us. And I think that that creates maturity. That creates a different kind of relationship to the world and others and a deeper kind of self-responsibility.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. And again, the same thing is true in the committed relationship that, you know, when people actually own that they have cruelty toward their partner, and we make a space, let's say in a session to bring that out, usually what happens is the partner feels relief.
Yeah.
Like, I have felt this anyway.
Yeah, right. You feel it.
So now you're naming it. Now you're expressing it. As bad as it may sound, outwardly, it actually helps people to feel safer.
Yeah, right. Because then it's owned. This is what I'm doing. I own it. This is what I do.
Yeah.
And then
The
we
moment we own something.
say it again.
Yeah, I was just going the moment that we own something, we really make it hard to unconsciously enact it.
Don't we? I love that about this work. I mean, there's a place that you get to where all that blame and judgment and making the other wrong, you get to such an awareness that it's all about something you don't want to feel inside yourself. And we come into a world then where it's really hard to blame. And that I think is really interesting, because once we get to that place, I think we can make different choices. I mean, it's not like bad things don't happen in the world and people do terrible, terrible things in the world. But if we can feel how we feel, we have a choice about how to respond, right? Rather than just condemning the other or saying, oh, there's evil out there. It gives us a lot of choice.
Yeah. Yeah, one of the things that was so eye-opening to me in this work is, whenever I work with somebody who was some kind of, what is often referred to as the perpetrator of abuse, how almost invariably they perceive themselves as a victim.
Oh, wow.
So, I did this because blah, blah, blah. Because, and they spin the story to give a justification for their perpetration of an abusive behavior. So, like, one of the things that I have found so powerful in this work is to help victims of any kind of abuse not only feel and allow the feelings about that, but to also find where in them they have a perpetrator, where in them they hold some of that energy. And for the perpetrators to really be able to, because they often see themselves through a lens of victimhood, is to feel, the truth about their perpetrator energy. So
have you been able to do that?
Yeah, I mean, I think when people are really, really entrenched in that, it's hard work, and I don't, like, I haven't worked with, let's say, murderers, for instance, but I would wonder how, if we brought this work to that population, I think there's opportunity there, to work with that energy. And, in theory, if we can access both those places in us, we reintegrate, and we don't project it out onto the world, onto another person.
Right.
Or another culture.
Right. It just, the whole thing can go from relationship to community to world. That kind of energy of making the other wrong is huge.